Coming up next on the Filthy Rich Cleaners podcast.
We hold ourselves back from that too because everything seems so final. I think getting past that fear of like, if I say no right now, it's no forever, and it's really not.
From your first dollar to your first million, welcome to the Filthy Rich Cleaners podcast, presented by ZenMade. Join your host, Stephanie Pipkin, founder of Serene Clean, as she shares proven tips, tricks, and hard-earned lessons. Whether you're just starting out or ready to scale, get ready to discover how to build your own cleaning empire. Let's roll up our sleeves and dive in.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Filthy Rich Cleaners podcast. I'm your host, Stephanie from Serene Clean, and in today's episode, we have the lovely Katie Jenks, who is my customer relations manager that started as a cleaning tech many moons ago. Katie, thank you for joining me. When did you start at Serene Clean?
In February of 2021.
And where did we meet Katie originally?
At the gym.
You did?
Talking about bodybuilding competitions. But then quickly found out that we actually went to the same high school. I just went there much earlier than you.
Like 2 years prior.
Right. I was a couple years ahead of you.
Exactly. We're all 30 years old forever. So yes, I don't even remember if when it came to applying, if that was just a word of mouth thing, or did you actually apply, or did you just reach out to me? Do you remember?
I sent a message through Facebook that I was interested in applying.
And what were you doing before?
Previous to this, I did a short stint working for a scheduling company for like veterans appointments, and had been substitute teaching, and then also teaching English to kids in China online. Previously worked in medical stuff, medical secretary, transcription stuff before that.
And why did you want to change? Or obviously, again, you started as a cleaning tech. What drew you to that? What made you say, I want to do this?
Doing the scheduling stuff at home, it was a work from home position, and just that wasn't for me, just sitting in my bedroom office all day long.
I feel your pain.
Get out and be around people, and I, having met in the gym, I was very into being active at that time, and felt like that would be a good fit. And just from meeting you, it was oh yeah, this is something I want to be a part of. And then as I got into it, it was something I really wanted to be a part of. And that's when, I had said, I think I could probably do more than just help with the cleaning here, and helping in the office and doing scheduling, and that's morphed into customer relations manager.
Yeah, and I think you just touched on something that really all three of the managers did, of they broached it to me. I believe I don't think I brought it up to any of you. It was you guys came to me and said, hey, I really see myself being able to be utilized in a bigger capacity. And it was very much also right time of it all. Obviously that's true for all of you, but also there was a clear demand. And I remember, right when you started, and as soon as you started cleaning, I'm Katie is meant for more here. It was just very clear. I just love your brain, Katie. I know I tell you that all the time, but God, you got a sexy brain.
Most of the time it's helpful, but
yeah, sometimes it overthinks too much.
Every good thing has a bad side too, right?
Exactly. And you had a really solid base of clients that really loved you. And I think that, again, looking at all the managers, it just makes sense that all of our management team have come from the physical work of it all. And I know that that's not how every company does it, but I think at Serene Clean, that just makes sense. Don't you agree?
I think it definitely helps with understanding the full process of the business versus just getting so tunnel visioned on my job is customer relations. And it's but I know why the clients are saying they're not happy with something, or could we do this thing differently? And I kind of understand that from having been in the cleaning technician role, I think, and then also tying that into what is the tech actually feeling or seeing or thinking, and I feel that's April and Crystal too. That helps us do better in the spot we're in now.
Yeah. And also knowing what is realistic, whether that be is the are the cleaners full of shit, or is this actually legitimate when it comes to, is there enough time? Are we being unreasonable? Is the client being unreasonable? Because it really is, I think, once you start introducing that layer of, we got management, we got techs, and we got clients, and trying to balance the needs of each is quite the challenge. And you definitely see that, well, all of you guys, but for you specifically being customer relations, you see that a ton, where we can kind of be protected from it of, you're the one dealing most likely with a client, and like, yeah, hitting that line, that boundary. And it's just like, they're constantly butting up against it. Maybe not even intentionally, but I mean, I'm sure you could give 1,000 examples of like where you've kind of had to check clients, and you do it so gracefully. So, I guess if you could describe like let's talk about what your daily responsibilities are, and how that has evolved over time. And then we can kind of dig into, examples and things like that.
Yeah, so when I started, it was really more so just the actual sending estimates and then offering those first cleaning dates, kind of doing some scheduling. It's really kind of changed into where I'm doing the majority of that now. Crystal definitely does a lot. April helps out with it too. But really kind of getting them started up. And then if things change down the road with like a text availability or something, like Crystal handles most of that and kind of moving things around. But that initial kind of contact comes from me. And then, doing bidding for like commercial accounts, following up with complaints when we get them, which hasn't happened for a really long time.
I know, we have a month and a half, knock on wood, I think we're at. No complaints.
So that, and just, kind of trying to recognize the clients for their loyalty to us too. We've been doing more with that. And then, kind of some of the marketing stuff. Oh, it's a lot that we do every day, but it's like when you start thinking about it, you're like, what do I actually do? Like, I do things.
I know, it's funny because whenever people ask me that, like, well, what's your typical day? And I'm just like, don't ask me that. I couldn't even tell you. I can't tell you what I ate for breakfast today.
We do a lot of things, and it's all different, but sometimes it's the same. And
yeah. And it really feels like, it ebbs and flows with the chaos. And I think that that's something that we've just really like learned to take in stride a lot better of like, this is just the nature of the business. And I think before it felt a lot more chaotic, and now it feels more like controlled chaos. Even when something goes like awry, I feel like our reactions are much more stunted than they used to be, and that definitely like is from me too.
Not like such high highs and such lows, like that roller coaster feeling. It's more of like, oh, we're kind of just like, floating along. But I think we're a lot better at being more proactive now than we were when I first came in. It was very reactive, and that's been a huge change. And just, like, you're never going to know everything that could happen, but it starts to show patterns. And I think we've been really good at figuring out what those patterns are, and then figuring out what can we do to try to like mitigate that before it becomes an issue.
That's one of my favorite words, mitigate, as well as proactive. So, and I think that it reflects on really, I feel like this past year as a management team, I feel like we have really, really like started to like laser focus in on what are the overarching problems that we keep seeing again and again, and actually doing something about it, instead of being like, training's a mess, or we don't have orientation, or whatever the thing is, right? Or, just quality control, etc. But we're not in the place that we could really create the space to focus on solving like the core root of the problem. It felt like we were fixing symptoms a lot.
Right.
Like
that whole like putting a Band-Aid on it, and now we're like, what is the actual root cause? Like what's really going on, not what is the reaction from that thing.
And I think honestly, it had to get a lot to do with like me getting, unfortunately, having to like dig the heels in on like pushing for growth, because it really I don't know, like it never felt like I was really pushing for it, but it was like, it always felt like it was tumbling out of control. Like we just had this like huge demand. And so that was always the focus of like, just fix this week, just make this week happen, and never like having long-term vision. I feel like it makes sense. We're a young company, and now we're kind of getting into our teenage years of like, well, maybe that's the wrong phrase, but maybe we're now a young adult of a company, and we're thinking about long-term consequences more than like, how do we make this week work,
Isn't the statistic like most new businesses, it's like if you make it to 5 years, then it's like that. And like I think we felt that, and even just having that all in our heads, like, oh, if we make it to 5, like we're good then. So it's like that internal pressure too that probably was kind of playing into it. I think the long-term vision's there, but it's figuring out the action to make it happen. And now I think we're better at looking at what data do we have, what kind of results are we actually looking for, and how do we marry those together to actually have some sort of action to take to do it.
Quick break. If you run a cleaning business, this is for you. The Maid Summit 2025 is the go-to virtual event to elevate your systems, grow your team, and finally get out of the day-to-day. 20 plus speakers, real results, and absolutely zero cost to you. Register today at maidsummit.com. Remember, it's free. Okay, now back to the video. At the end of the day, what's good for the cleaners or cleaning techs is what's good for the bottom line. But sometimes knowing how to marry those two can be very challenging, because a lot of the decisions we make, wouldn't appear to be good for the bottom line, like pumping the brakes, like we cannot grow until we fix this problem. And in the week or the month or the 6-month term, that seems like stupid. But now that we have the hindsight of we had the discipline and we actually said, no, we cannot grow because we're going to grow these problems and it's going to collapse. And I feel like you always use the phrase of if we had 50 cleaners, what's going to fall apart? And it'd be like, well, everything would fall apart. Well, therefore we need to fix these. And, over the past year, I feel like we've made such huge leaps and bounds from an organization standpoint of it actually feels like a real company now, which I don't even know what I mean by that, but do you know what I mean?
I do. And it's, unfortunately, there's ways that it has to be more corporate feeling, I think, for it to work. There's a reason that big corporations are big corporations, but we still want to feel like a family. So it's figuring out how do we do that. And I think probably the medical background that most of us I think all 3 of us in management worked in the medical field. I was a medical secretary, transcriptionist. April did insurance billing. Crystal did patient care kind of stuff, whatever. We've had that background of the whole bedside manner and the be prepared, all of that. And I think that kind of carries through that. Yeah, we might have to do something that feels more corporate, but we're going to explain why and try to keep it so that, people understand what we're doing and why we're doing it. So we can still kind of have that family feel and still feel like a small business, but cut out some of those issues that create all the problems.
Yep.
And just make it really hard for us to function day to day, which makes it, that carries back over to the techs that they're like, well, we can tell that you guys feel stressed out. Why are you stressed? Well, because this stuff keeps happening. So we have to say no, or we have to change how we do this.
I feel like having a finger on the pulse of our internal resentment, because one tech does not understand that when they do something unreasonable, it's not just them. It's you guys are dealing with an onslaught of unreasonableness. And I think it really has been a learning curve of we went too far. You don't even think this is possible. We went too nice. We went too lenient.
Too empathetic.
We
all kind of tend to have, I think, that mindset too of but we understand. We understand where they're coming from. And we want it to be that we can take care of them. And then we have to do the hard thing of saying no. And that's harder. And we've had to learn how to do that and still feel okay with ourselves of having to do that.
Just figuring out where that point is. And for the listeners, to give examples of that, of I don't know, just allowing our cleaning techs to really almost rule the roost of, if they're feeling and it's not like we don't still feel this way. It's more just with limits of if they're feeling overwhelmed or they don't want to do something I don't feel like it. I feel like we allowed that a little too much because we wanted to be known for our empathy and caring, and you're not just a number. Like, that's really important to us. And, family first and all of our core values, but that can absolutely be taken advantage of. And I don't even think necessarily on purpose, but of course they're gonna take as much as we give. Like,
right. Like if you hold somebody's hand for the whole time, they get used to that. And that's a lot of what we did. And it's just not something that's sustainable long term. So we had to learn how to say, I'm still here.
Yep.
Like, we need you to take the responsibility and let us know what you need. Like somebody calls out, well, can I call out today? Well, yes, like you've from the get-go, you've known what our policy is, you know how to do this, but like, I can't tell you if you're sick enough to not work today. Like, I'm not in your shoes, I'm not in your house. So then it's if you need to, you can. Well, now we're like, you have to tell us what you need. Don't need to know why or where or what's going on, but like, yes or no, are you going to be at work? And then that allows us to do the rest of it. And like, we don't leave it that cold feeling, but it really is like, there's some things that like it has to just be the responsibility of the other person.
And I think like that, that literally happened this week, and you guys handled it so well with one of the texts and saying like, you need to make this call. We're not making this call for you. And that can be said very lovingly, but also very clearly. And I think boundaries can be a really loving thing. And I think people think that means you're going to be cold or a bitch or not care about somebody. It's like, no, not at all. Like, this can be lovingly done. And I think we're really finding our stride in that behavior. And even, I think we did a good job too last year. We did like a mandatory education. The whole team was there, and we put out like, hey, and we named it. We're like, things are going to feel a little bit different because these are the things that we're experiencing. The business cannot continue to grow successfully and for everybody to feel good unless some new things are in place, instead of just like laying down the law. I feel like you said, we explained why the law was what's necessary.
Yeah. And I mean, I've worked in places where policy changes happened and you're like, what the heck? Like, that's not what I signed up for, and I think that we just do a really good job of that too. It's like, some things have to change and it's going to change no matter how anybody feels about it. Like, but even that, it's even just saying that, like, we understand, like, this is so different from what we did before, but it has to happen. And like, we'll talk with you about it if you, have questions or feel a certain way or whatever. Like, but there's a lot of it that I think just saying it ahead of time, or, this is going to be happening. Like you said, at that meeting, it was a lot of, we're seeing these things, like, this is what's going to change. We're working on it. We'll let you know when it's happening, or even just using Slack for communication, like how much time that we spent before we even rolled it out to try to think of all the things that were going to be the pitfalls and what might make them not want to do it, and find out how it's going to be similar to what we were using and how it's going to be better. Like, just giving them all that information, like just being very transparent.
Mm-hmm. Well, and I think even just like the framework that we use now, oftentimes when implementing a new change, like, we come at it. I mean, I just did that like yesterday when I'm about to do this like marketing email. I'm like, poke holes in this logic. Like, does this make sense? And so I feel like we're doing that with every change, because if we internally poke the holes, that means we can prevent it from affecting the outside user, whether that be the client, whether that be the cleaner. It really is that proactive thinking. And you're not going to like be able to know all of the things, right? Like, sometimes it's like, oh, why didn't we think of that? But by doing this, we catch a lot, and same with like looking at Hannah's role, like the quality control. We are catching like 90% of problems before they ever get to the client. And then the techs are learning and it doesn't happen again. And we're seeing the fruits of the labor when it comes to that quality control, and just proactive, not waiting for a complaint to happen. So yeah, it's been really cool to see. And I think like, I know for myself, I certainly take for granted, because it's like, oh, like, I'm not seeing it necessarily in the bottom line, but we are seeing it in like everybody's like happiness as well as quality of work. You guys are having to deal with so much less.
Right. And I mean, that does carry over, eventually it does get back to the bottom line. If we're not having to train 6 new technicians because the ones that we had were unhappy with the things that we changed or the way that, what it was, which that's always going to happen too. But, if you can keep the staff you have, it's going to be a lot cheaper than finding new ones.
Yeah, really focusing on retention. And I think also looking at that training of like new policies, we typically marry those with like a new benefit as well. Like, oh, we're cracking down on these ways, but also wages are going to go up or have the ability to go up. Like we kind of married those two things so that it felt like, and we don't have to do that every time, but I feel like that helps them have buy-in of like, oh, I have this added responsibility or higher expectations of excellence, but I can now earn way more than I ever could before. I have that potential. So yeah, there's just been a lot of cool changes, I feel like, recently.
There's so much respect in this workplace too, and yes, like we're on the management team, but we'll go out and clean. I mean, I don't really go out and clean because I'm not good at it anymore. But if I had to, I would. And, but the techs know that and they realize that. And, it's just such a different environment that if the person that is here gets it, they get it and they stay. And there's going to always be people that don't get it. And that's okay. Like, then it's not the place for them. So, I think we're realizing that too. Like, we can bend over backwards and they might not appreciate it, but that doesn't mean that what we did wasn't still a good thing and isn't in line with our values as a company and as individuals, because I think that's another big thing for myself. Like, when I saw that that's what the core values were of the company, like, yep, I'm in, like that's how I want to live my life too. And, not that it's the right way all the time, but like we all do our best. And if you can recognize that, I think it goes a long way to make everybody feel better about showing up every day.
Yeah, I think it's just so much easier, the whole boat analogy of like, this is the boat that I built and you guys all got on the boat and we're all like, yep, we're rowing north, right? And it's just so much easier to find people who want to also row north than get somebody who wants to row south and try to change them and be like, no, do it this way. Where it's just like the longest standing staff member is the one who's like really all of it. Yeah, just our team is so strong because it's just all full of people who want to row in that direction. And we don't have to try to force them to row in a way that's not natural to them. And, I often, obviously positive and grateful attitude, like I use this one all the time as an example, but it's like, if you just have a very like glass half empty perspective on the world, it's probably not going to work out for you here. And it like, that probably gives a lot of people the ick because they think it's like toxic positivity, but I would say it's like absolutely not. It's just, if like, we just, it's so hard to change somebody's disposition. Why do we just not even try? Like you're not going to fit in here, and they stand out pretty quickly,
And we've had people that maybe are a little bit that way that have, stuck around and they're like, this has kind of changed my life, which is awesome to be a part of that too, and it's hard to change your mindset. So if that's something that we can do here too, on top of the actual work that we do, that's extra icing on the cake for me.
Yeah, I've definitely seen, I can think of several current staff members, I would say confidence, especially like because, and I will say, in my opinion, that is directly correlated to having very loving but high expectations. Like I know you're capable of excellence and that's why we're going to hold you to it. And then they have like all of this history of really excellent behavior and you're right. It changes who they are, and even for us as a management team, honestly, like I just feel like I've never had to manage you guys. And that's like, it's hard for me to give advice to other owners when they're like looking for a manager. It's like, well, have somebody who kind of like self-polices. Like you guys beat yourself up if you make a mistake. This morning I had to call out Crystal's mistake because she never makes one ever. So I had to document it.
That's, I think, the part where you're really good at stepping in with that because you know that we're going to show up and do what we do and we're going to do it the best we can every day that we're here. And that looks different every day. But like the part of it that I think we probably need more help with is when we are like, oh, I really messed that up. Like now my confidence is tanking, which then spreads through, like everybody else. So that's when you're really great at being like, but wait, like maybe that's the lesson we need to learn. Like, look at all this other stuff that we've figured out from that, especially like with me recently, like, you know, underbidding a really huge account, and I really beat myself up for it. And it's like a conversation with you turned that around to say like, but what about this other stuff that like has been really good because of it?
We have learned so much from that. Like, it's like, again, every time I look at like what we all would consider our biggest like screw ups in the business, like, it's like, holy crap, like, thank goodness that happened, because we learned so much and we were able to like just propel so much progress from that. Because when everything's going smoothly, you can't learn anything, you
Right.
know, like at all. And so I think that that's kind of, well, one, that's natural, like to me, but also from a leadership perspective, like you guys, I think do a really good job of that, taking that kind of mindset and running it with the text, because obviously I'm not interacting with the cleaning text at all. And like, I'm here for vibes and making everybody feel good. Like I don't actually manage the text, right? You guys do. And so, or the clients, you know, sometimes they try to jump over you guys and get to me, and I have to beat them back with a broom and say, no, that's not okay. Especially, clients who, you know, they've been with us for a long
time. The beginning. Yeah.
Yeah. And that, I would say it's really interesting to see when people are like, you know, I'd like to talk to Stephanie directly. And it's like, I don't know anything. Go talk to Katie. like, why are you trying to talk to me? But so yeah, it's really interesting as time evolves how people behave with the evolutions. And yeah, so I feel that just having a really strong growth mindset has allowed us to overcome a lot of challenges, and not like, I know that you were beating yourself up about that account, but it's like, okay, like we can't change what happened, but we can change like how we evolve from here. And yeah, we've taken away a lot from that of, okay, we're not going to bid any evening lacrosse work right now. That's one of our service ranges, guys, if that you're not aware with Western Wisconsin's geography. But one of our locations is in a place that we're struggling with hiring and keeping people in evening positions. Like, that's just what we're currently dealing with. So we're like, why do we keep trying to force ourselves to make this work when it's not working well, where we could just make that same money easy, lower hanging fruit daytime in the areas that we can staff? And really like having that revelation. And I was definitely like, I think I was the one who was digging my heels in the moat of like, no, we're going to make this work. I don't care. And then, you know, 2-hour conversation later with you guys, I'm like, all right.
That's what it takes sometimes too. So, you know, and just we get so blinded by like the dollar amount or the place that it is or the time frame that it has to happen, that you forget about like, but what if we took that and like we ended up saying like we were trying to do all this math with it, and it's like, well, no, it's 4 hours a day, so we need to replace 4 hours a day. Like, we don't have to do any math. It's just, where can we find 4 hours a day? Well, that seemed way more achievable than trying to say we need to replace this per month. Like, you know, like, just, I think, and that's where the team of the management team comes in. It's like we bounce all these ideas off, and then it's eventually somebody's like, oh, but wait, what about this? And it's never the same person.
I definitely appreciate like all of our, you know, very different strengths, I feel. And like it can be frustrating at times. And, you know, I've said this, you know, many times of like your guys' personalities or the way you think directly goes against how my brain works, but that's exactly what's needed, because I have blind spots, and we'd be doing a bunch of stupid shit if it was full reign on Stephanie. And at the end of the day, like I you know, whatever, I am the owner, but I never like, I feel like every time I've just like been a bull in a china shop and said, this is what we're doing, like no argument, I deeply regret it. And I should have like considered not that you guys would ever like, I mean, at this point, I think you're all pretty emboldened to be like, Stephanie, you're wrong. Like, I think at this point, you're all very comfortable with, you know,
it's funny memes usually, but like,
yeah, it's the only way that I can handle my fragile emotions being like being affected in that way. It's like when I'm like, April, you need to stop using periods at the end of your sentence and use more emojis. I think you're mad at me always.
Points in here. But I think that's maybe, you know, like I know you said you don't really know what to tell people, like how to find us. Like, I guess look at as an owner, like look at the things that you do like tend to always say yes to. Like who's the person that's going to tell you, wait a minute, like this might be a no, like this might be better to be a no, or yeah, like I've got all this cash that I could just start throwing around, and you need the April to be like, but wait, if you keep doing that, like what's going to happen? So like maybe it's more finding those people that like their strength is one of your weaknesses. So you get this full rounded picture of what the team becomes because of all of those different mindsets and ways that they think.
Yeah, absolutely. And not just from a management perspective, but a tax perspective. And I know that is something that they really appreciate because they told us, like they feel like we respect their opinion. So you mentioned the word respect, but it's like a perfect example of if your cleaning techs are making suggestions, it doesn't mean you need to like always listen, but think about them. They might, they're the ones in the field and they're the ones seeing everything. If they're saying like this tool does not work or this is really frustrating, XYZ, like if we can make it easier and that makes it like every little micro improvement we can make on the text days means they're more likely to stay, if we can make it less difficult. It's a challenging job, it's very physical and
acknowledging them for that stuff. That's something we do a lot of. Just today, Jamie's at a post-construction clean and she sent pictures and she's like, hey, like these bathrooms aren't even done yet. And I remember this other time I was at somebody's house and they had a note that said not to use any water because it could cause the tile to set wrong. And I was like, I don't know if I would have thought of that. So like she, can you contact the homeowner today to make sure? He was super appreciative of that she thought to think, they just spent thousands of dollars remodeling their bathrooms and us going in to clean it and make it better could have ruined it. Like that's a really huge thing that she could have just been like, well, I guess I'm just going to do whatever, but
the thinking and like right there, like Jamie's a master of her craft. She is like, she is so good at what she does. And now like, I hadn't seen that interaction yet. So
it just happened. So
it just happened. And so like, that's a perfect example of like what Katie just said. We are going to talk about at Monday's meeting. You don't just highlight the bad things, like right there, that thought process. We want to commend Jamie's thought process there, right? She's thinking, she's not just blindly following rules, because we don't want an army of robots, no matter how many times I joke about it. Like we don't actually want that. We want a bunch of people who think critically and can problem solve of like, wait a minute, this is different. This is not typical. Let me take a pause and double check and really commending them when they behave in ways that are really just incredible like that. And so we'll talk about that Monday at the team meeting and highlight her publicly, give her some warm fuzzies, as we like to call them, and then introduce that concept to other cleaners so that they can learn from it as well. And I think overarchingly, we've just really gotten a lot better. I mean, it's always been there, but like, yeah, learning from like, don't just let something happen and let it go away. It's very easy, especially when you're in the field a lot as an owner or as managers. You're so sucked into just surviving the day to day. Like it's really hard to like lift your head up and say right there, that's something like we need to pull that string, positive or negative, if something needs to change or whatever. And even looking at like the multiple iterations to the cleaning checklist that has happened over 6 years. I mean, we have altered our cleaning checklist like 100 times, just of like, okay, people just keep not understanding what window tracks versus window panes versus sills. Like nobody knows what these words mean. And instead we keep having complaints because the client expectation.
One thing, it's all managing expectations. Yeah. Like, and I can say tomato and you're tomato and we think it's two different things, but it's the same thing. Or sometimes it's completely different things, so yeah.
So like learning,
and we've got a diagram now. This is the parts of a window, or and even just customer relations side of it, like telling the client, like this is what we're gonna do unless you tell us something different, instead of leaving it open ended. Like that's been a huge change in the last year too, I think, of like instead of like, oh, we'll say what do you want, and then we still don't understand it, so it's this back and forth. So it's like, nope, this is what we do. If that's not what you want, like now you need to tell us what it is. And that's made a big difference for just back and forth communication is so much quicker.
I agree. I think like in your role specifically, kind of like going in more detail on that, I think what I've been really just amazed by, like again, in the past, I just feel like so much has happened in the past year. I don't know why. I'm not sure. Yeah, we hit that 5-year mark, I guess, and we got our shit together. But I think in your role specifically, it has been really focused on efficiency. How can we take 5 interactions with a client and whittle that down to it only needs 1? And I mean that in the best way possible, because that's great for the client. It's great for you. Great for everybody, right? And so how can we make sure that we answer their questions before they even have them, right? So, okay, we keep having this thing happen. Well, let's educate them in the estimate, request. Like, can you give, or in the, once they book the questions, can you give some examples of changes that we have made in the booking process that has made us more successful and more efficient?
Yeah, I think like from the very first email that goes to them after they fill out the ZenMaid form and they want us to come and clean for them or find out more about it, we spell it out very clearly. Like, this is everything we're going to need from the beginning of what we're going to do. We send them the checklist right away. And we added a line that says, if you want any of the, add-on services, you need to let us know when you reply to the email so that it doesn't come to, we've taken this time, we picked a day that fits the amount we estimated, and now they want to add on 3 more hours worth of work. Well, now we have to redo all of that. We might have to move it to a different day. They're already expecting us to come, and now we've got to schedule it 2 more weeks out. That doesn't feel good on their end. Like, that, even though it wasn't us that didn't know what they wanted, it's us not being able to give them what we just told them they could have. And now, as the client, that's like, well, do you really have your stuff together or do you not? So like that building trust from the get-go. We changed our follow-up email. So once they say yes, now we send something and it asks like, are there any surfaces that you don't want cleaned? Anything that's, going to be new or replaced, if it's like a move out clean or move in clean. Don't have us clean your oven if you're going to put a new one in, but you didn't realize that we were going to clean your oven, even though it's on the checklist, because you knew you were going to get a new one, but you didn't tell us that. And, we've just realized that people maybe haven't used a cleaning service before or ever had somebody else clean their house, or they're in the process of, buying a home the first time and it's all that outside stress. So it's like, pulling all these things that we've seen, again, those patterns, and what can we tell them so they understand it more, and maybe, or just makes them think of another question to ask us if they don't know what a cleaning service does. Mm-hmm. Like that, just doing a lot more follow-up, I think, after, their first cleaning, their second cleaning, reminding them, like, this is how it works if you want to have recurring services. Like, that's a different email we send now that has, it spells it out. Like, this is what you can book. This is, what we expect from you. If something's going to change, we explain all of that. So it's just something they can reference back to and have that information. And it helps us too. Then when they're like, well, I didn't know that. And it's like, well, actually, we did send you this email, and I think that's what I've seen from watching the other podcasts you've done. Like, some other owners are, like, well, how do you hold a client accountable to something? Well, you had to tell them in the first place, and you have to be able to show them that you told them that. Not that it makes it go away, but it's at least something for you to stand on to be able to say, but like, I did tell you that. So maybe you still don't want to work with us going forward, but we do what we say, and this is what we told you. So this is, what's next.
Mm-hmm. And I think all of the things that you're highlighting, it may seem like, oh my gosh, like that's so much to ask of the client, but all it's doing is helping us not have to ask them later, because all of these things have to be asked at some point in the relationship with the client. And if you're putting that on the tech, you may not even know as the owner, because you haven't even thought about these things, that you're putting it on the tech, but you are. And then the tech doesn't answer, they guess, they get it wrong, client's unhappy. Again, what you said, like it's the expectations being mismatched, and really coming from it of just assume that this client has never ever cleaned anything or used a cleaning service before. Like, we need to assume like nothing. And so that really puts us in kind of like, we feel like we are the educator to them of this. But all of this makes us seem so competent and so professional, because all of a sudden we're taking this thing that's kind of stressful, getting a house cleaner. It's so nerve wracking and trusting, and what your hopes and dreams are. And is it going to be matched? And then the financial cost of it all, not to mention the, potential shame of having somebody in your house. We're taking all of those feelings and like just giving them a pat on the shoulder. We got this, right? Like, we got this. We know exactly what we're doing. This is the path. We're outlining it to you. And every single question showcases that we know what we're doing. Well, where the garbage is going to go? Do you have a toilet brush in every room? How do we enter the home? Do you want a salaka? Like, just all of this showcases that we know what we're talking about, and that gives them a sense of reassurance that they're about to be taken care of. And I actually just recorded a solo episode about like consistency and branding. And I feel like this is like, our brand is like consistent excellence, and they know exactly what they're going to get. And anytime we've had a complaint on something related to like, expectations being mismatched, like reflecting on it and saying like, well, there's been inconsistency here somewhere. Like, there's something inconsistent.
Yeah. And that's what I think we're doing really well at, collecting that data and actually looking at it to see what is the action. Like, is there something that is actionable that we can do to prevent it from happening again, whether it's just for that client or, does it carry over as a whole business practice? And how do we actually implement that? Like, what could it look like, 3 months from now or a year from now if we do this thing? And I think just that whole 10X kind of mindset is such a positive thing, because we get so stuck or used to, and I think maybe a new business owner might, of like that survival mode still. But it's like, but if you want this to grow long term, like, you've got to take the time to look at those things now and handle them when there's fewer of them happening versus, 10 more times this or 50 times this.
And really knowing like what the root cause is, because like when I look at a lot of the problems we were having, it was because of the training process. And that's why we're not experiencing it. Of like, we had great cleaners and we had great people coming to us. And so they were doing well for everything, but because the detriment was us, meaning we did not have a consistent training program. So we were experiencing, 6 months down the line, and, a new staff member, they made it through training, and then they'd get a complaint on something. We're like, whoa, cleaner, what the heck's your problem?
Right. We don't do it that way, but nobody ever told me not to do it that way, or nobody told me how to do it, or showed me how to do it, or explained why we do it. So doing all that stuff now, and then also explaining that to the clients. Like, we explain to them like, oh, well, I want my windows washed. Can you do that too? Yep, we can. Interior windows that we can reach from 1 foot off the floor and that don't have screens on the insides, because we won't remove the screens. If you want to do that for us, and put them back on when we're done, we can do it. But like, oh, but my windows tip in. Nope, we don't do that either. And just being very much like, we don't do that, but, we're happy to do the insides of them for you. And here's somebody we recommend to do the exterior, so like, just kind of stuff like that, I think has been really big too in managing the expectations.
Being really specific. And then, because when people understand, then again, it's that relaxing into like, oh, like I know it's same with for the text. They know exactly what's expected of them. And we've just given them a lot more clarity on like very specifically what the expectation is. Even when we were revamping like the wage guidelines, and we're like, okay, well, what if it's arguable if the complaint is like legitimate or not, or the quality of work is not up to par, when we haven't established what is up to par? We all know what it is visually. Like I could point it out, blindfolded, but if you do not actually put it out on paper, this is what passing standard is, and this is not. We're like, well, how are they supposed to know? We can't just say like that. Well, it's clearly not, because it's not clear. And so like, just, I don't want to say stupid proof, because nobody's stupid here, but like fool proof it. Like, make sure that there's poke holes in it. How could somebody arguably say I didn't know?
Area as much as possible. And like, yeah, like we've done that, like the checklist, we've gone through it and said, like, what does it mean if you've done a quality clean of a ceiling fan? Like, this is what it means. And then even as far as like the commercial checklist where we're adding at the top, like if it says clean and sanitize, this is what it means. Use this product, use this tool. If it says dust or it says wipe, and like making sure that everything's, again, uniform, like you were saying, like everything needs to be the same across the board to hold everybody to those same standards, which they need to know what the standards are so that they can be held accountable and then they can be successful at it, which makes everybody feel good and come to work. So it's just like this full circle.
It's a full circle. Exactly. And you know, even describing like when you just, yeah, yes, a circle of life at Serene Clean. And, you know, it is kind of overwhelming when you say it all like that, but it actually makes everything so much simpler because everybody can just show up and perform. They don't have to think so hard, you know, and we're just helping them take out a lot of like, I don't knows. And again, like I've kind of said since the beginning of Serene, like I don't want anybody to ever be able to actually legitimately say, I didn't know I was supposed to do that. Or I just didn't understand. And now like broadening that to the customers, like I want the customers never to be able to say, well, I didn't know, because that's on us then. Like, even if it's like something that we're like, well, of course we're not going to do that. Or like anytime we think it's obvious, again, like throw that out the window, like, because we get asked all sorts of stuff. Right. And just having that really clear in the client guidelines on the checklist. And then, yeah, internally for even like the commercial stuff that we're changing up, like, what does it mean to damp mop? What do these things mean? And not assuming that anybody knows what that exactly means, and just really clearing up any potential confusion down the road. And so, yeah, I think that has been like a massive improvement, and we're really seeing that result of that, you know, putting in that work and that effort on the back end. We're seeing that now of like, okay, the techs are not coming to us with all of this stuff anymore at all. Like I remember, yeah, last year it got bad there for a minute where it's like every week it's like, holy shit, like why is this still happening?
It's like we all forgot. We were all wearing the I'm new here sticker even though we've been here for forever. I'm like I really did that at one of my jobs before. I just wore that thing. I was like a year in, I was still new, and like everybody I worked with knew I wasn't, but I was
I would do that waitressing.
But like,
anytime I made a mistake waitressing, even if it was like 3 years in, I'd be like, sorry guys, it's my first week.
my first day.
Little tip. That's funny.
But I mean, I think too, like, you know, it's like we take away the stuff that they don't have to think about it, which allows people to actually use the critical thinking skills for the rest of it. And that's worth so much because yes, I know I can just show up and I do the things every day, but like, it's never the same. Like we joke, we don't know what we do every day. Like I'm sure the techs feel that way too, even though they're still going to clean a house with the same checklist, you know, but like every house is different. Every homeowner is different. You know, like all of that stuff is different. Like, yes, it comes down to it. Like a toilet's a toilet. We clean it the same way, but everything else that plays into it is different. So like giving them like this really good base of like, this is how we do everything. Now, like if you run into something that's different, like, oh, hey, like that's different. That's not what I usually do. I'm going to ask a question. I'm going to, you know, like I can think about that thing like Jamie did today, you know, like had she had to go in and make all the decisions about what she was going to do at this cleaning, she maybe wouldn't have thought of that because she was too busy trying to figure out and just survive and get through it versus here's everything you need to be successful. As long as you follow what we've taught you, you're going to be successful. And now she encountered something that was not expected and she did exactly what she should have done, you know? So like it gives people that space, I think, to use their brain in a way that it needs to be used in that moment.
And I think like, thinking back to, you know, we introduced a weekly operations meeting for us management team over the past year. And yeah, it's a weekly meeting on Wednesdays. And some of those conversations would make me want to beat my head into a wall because it was us blinking at each other saying, wait, how do we handle sheets? How do we make a bed? And like, just, it was so annoying to have to define these things. Like I hate that. I don't want to talk about those things because it's like, I'm very much like, I'm a big picture kind of gal. And so even when we're trying to establish, when there is no established standard, like, and that's the hardest part, I think, is making the decision. Like, I mean, I can think of several examples of like us going back and forth of like, should we keep washing? You know, how do we make beds? How do we handle washing linens? What about duvet covers? What about this? What about this? What about this? And like, it's just so freaking annoying. And then finally coming to like, okay, an hour later, coming to like the decision of, we're not washing laundry at people's houses anymore. And because from day one, I made the decision that we're going to do that. We can do up to 2 loads, you know, an appointment. And like, I set that 6 years ago and I forgot it. And when you just are working off of like, this is how we do things and never taking a step back and saying, should we be doing this at all? And I think we've really just been analyzing, like, take a huge step back. Do we need to throw this whole thing out and start over? You know, not the business. Well, sometimes it feels like it, but like, but you know, this whole policy, like really just take away all conceived notions about this thing and coming at it with fresh eyes and making the decision, dropping vacation rentals. Like we are beating ourselves against a wall, trying to make it work with vacation rentals. And we can make it work. We can force it to work. But we're just like, well, why don't we just not do these anymore? Why not? Well, and you know, maybe we do, but
I think we, like, just in general, human nature, like we hold ourselves back from that too, because everything seems so final. Like if I say we're not going to do laundry anymore, like the business is going to go under, you know, like absolutely, you know, like it's so easy to get into that. Like, or, well, if we don't do all the vacation rentals we used to have, like it's over. But like, no, like we can always add them back if we want and be very selective about who we take and how we do it. Same thing with laundry. Like maybe we decide in the future, like we will offer it as an extra service, but like it's going to maybe be in a different way that works better for us and our techs. And, you know, however we might decide to do it, or, you know, whatever the task is, it's, I think getting past that fear of like, if I say no right now, it's no forever. And it's really not. Like, I think you get more stuck with when you say yes all the time of like, now I'm stuck. I have to do this thing and I don't really want to do it, or it doesn't make sense to do it. And now eventually we're going to have the hard conversation to say like, we can't do that.
Mm-hmm. And really like focusing on like, we are really, really good at very specific things and just doing those things. And I think having the discipline to say no to the other things, or making a change and kind of being, I feel like we've been pretty ruthless of just slashing things recently. It's like cancel all of the accounts. I mean, it just feels like that when we cancel like 2 of them. But but honestly, every time we do that, it's scary in the moment, but it's really empowering. At least that's how I've felt recently. Like when we do make these decisions, it feels really good to make that decision, you know?
I think that's like, we're trusting ourselves, you know, and that's something that's really hard to do too, you know? So taking that and realizing that last time when I trusted myself, it worked out really well and likely caused us to even go further forward than we had been while we were trying to limp along with this thing that we thought we had to hold on to. So now it's okay. So it's a muscle. Like trust, I feel like trust is a muscle. Like you work it and it grows and it gets better and bigger and just gets easier. Same, you know, makes you more confident. Like that's a skill. It's not something that people are born with. Like you're not born confident. You learn to be confident. Like, yeah.
And I think like it was interesting. I was talking to Jim yesterday from ZenMade, who's the designer there, who, you know, you've talked to, and we're having a conversation about like, you know, kind of traits that we have in ourselves and whatnot. And I kind of reflected on it. And for me, I've always had pure confidence that I'm going to figure it out. And like looking at every giant opportunity that has came to Serene Clean, a lot of times it's not even been a question in my mind. And I know that I've literally dumped that on you guys of like, we're bidding this, and so I know I said what I said about bulldozing before, but looking at like our biggest commercial account, right? Like when we bid that, I didn't really think we were going to get it, one, and then we got it. And,
and we're all like, why did we let you do this?
I know. I was so salty to you guys.
Can't do this. What the heck?
I know, I was so mad. I was like, if you guys were so upset, why'd you let me bid it in the first place? But then, like we had no choice. We had to figure it out, and we did. And like, that doesn't always, translate necessarily. We make mistakes, but like, I'm just confident because I've seen us figure out every problem that has came our way. And it may mean literally like breaking up with the problem. Like that's the solution.
Yeah,
it's like, we're
right.
done with it.
Sometimes the way to figure it out is that you have to say no, or you don't do the thing. Like,
exactly.
Or you say like, I tried and it didn't work out. Like, but at least what you learned, what you learned from it is what you figured out. So I totally agree with that mindset, like of not easy for everybody, but it is possible.
Well, I think it's kind of my role as like the owner to have like kind of that like eternal optimism while also being, practical and reasonable or realistic, I guess. But I just know we can figure anything out. Like this isn't rocket science. Like, successful business has been happening, and especially with the internet. Like at this point, ChatGPT is like the other manager, right? Like, look at what we have. Like we can figure anything out. And, as new challenges come our way, or, new fears kind of get like uncovered, it's like, okay, like we can figure this out. We always have, and not allowing fear of the unknown or failure really take over. And even looking at, the Fort McCoy project, like I didn't even ask you guys. I says, we're doing this. This is happening.
You just took off that day, and while you were there, they were calling us, and we're like, now they want 3 times as what she was going for. Like, what are we doing? But, like, and I don't know, like at some point too, it's like you just have to be like, all right, like hold on, let's do it. Like, and I think we're maybe getting a little bit more that way because we're seeing too, like sometimes when it seems like it's one of Stephanie's crazy yes ideas that we're like, okay, like just buckle in, and it will happen how it's supposed to. And like, I think we just said that this morning again, like everything always works out for us. Like you have to believe that. And I think especially somebody just starting out, like, and you and I have talked about that too. Like, I'm really interested in like how you run the business, but I don't ever want to run the business. Like, I don't want to be the business owner. Like, that's not something I aspire to be, but I want to help grow the business as much as I can and be part of it. But like, thinking if somebody that's watching is like at that point of like, I don't know if I can do this, like, you got to just keep pushing through that part of it, because getting through the tough stuff, like what we've seen and continue to see, like you figure it out, and then it's just amazing.
Yeah. And I feel like really, I've heard the phrase like intrapreneur before, and that's what I would describe you as. You are an intrapreneur. Like you have a very entrepreneurial and business mindset, but you want to be in like part of the leadership team, I think is like the perfect place for you, as opposed to like, going and opening your own business. Because there is a certain level of, stability and, things that maybe you guys are up at night, like worrying about revenue, like, like me sometimes, but like, probably less. Yeah. and I totally agree of like, you guys have seen me have like, pretty bad freakouts and things, and reflecting back, that's been kind of a learning lesson, and it's been a never ending challenge for me of how much do I share with you guys versus like hold out, Stephanie. Do not share that irrational thought, or maybe it is rational, but like protecting you guys from like my sheer like terror sometimes, because it's like, I say all this, I put all this stuff out there of like, I'm confident, and I am very confident. Doesn't mean I don't have like wild, like fears,
That's the thing. It's like the two sides of every coin, like I can be super confident, and that's a huge strength, which is also a weakness of mine, that like maybe I'm overconfident sometimes, but like when you recognize it, that's such a helpful thing to do. And if we didn't have you saying like, I think we can do this, or I know we can do this, And then the backside of it, of you being like, but I'm really concerned if we do this, what's going to happen or what has happened. Like, all of it has to be there for the business to be what it is.
Yeah. And not using one data point to be like, see, because I know that's my biggest struggle is like, well, our big account worked out, our biggest commercial account worked out. Like, and that's because I didn't listen to you guys. And so, but not using that as like, I guess I should never listen to you guys, or you guys are right. And then I'm coming at you guys with something of like, no, we need to do XYZ. I feel like you guys are all just like poo-poo pantsy sometimes and very negative towards like my ideas, but that's exactly why we need each other. Because some of my ideas are insane and shouldn't even come out of my mouth. But they do. And so we kind of balance each other out, and just to get us to that central point of like actual, sometimes you take risks, other times you pump the brakes and say, no, this is not going to work. Don't do that. Stay the course. Because for me, I can be super flighty and not focused and have, a million, though I've shiny
so many things at one time. Yeah. And we're like, let's just focus on like this one thing, or maybe 2 or 3 and like get really good at that. But then we need that push sometimes too of like, well, like we need to do 5 things at one time, or we need to set this aside, even though it's not done, and focus on this other thing. Yeah. So this is a bigger issue right now, or maybe it's not even an issue, but it's something that's going to have a greater reward. So like that makes more sense to do. And that's definitely like, without you having that kind of mindset, we would, I think, just get stuck in like, okay, we're doing really well. Like we feel really good on this road. So we're going to stay right here. And like,
well, and I think the overwhelming part is running a business. You can't just do one thing at a time, unfortunately. And I know that for you guys, like the overwhelm comes when we realize that of like, gosh, can't we just fix this one thing? Why does this keep happening? And like feeling like you're pulled in many directions. And it's like, well, we're a small business. Like, that's the reality of the situation. And like me being cognizant of, like, as Crystal's like, it's always overwhelming. Like, and it is. And that is the path we've chosen, and how do we balance that overwhelm and still make progress? And one of the like tactical things that we've done is we literally sat down and said, okay, what are all of the things that we are thinking of doing from like a project perspective, from a revamp, things that we need discussed? We literally put it on paper and we broke them up into the quarters of the year. And we're like, okay, how much effort do we think that this is going to take? Okay, that means, quarter 2, this is all we're doing. Like, or we can only do these 3 things. And it's like, it's so funny because I know like, what you described of like, I'll come in and drop an idea and it's like, I'll completely, kind of steal the show and be like, well, it's like, when do we think that we can get this done? It's like, wait. We've got these 4 things we're doing this quarter. No, that's not like if we're going to start this, something else needs to stop. And like, that has been really useful because it makes it like, you're like, gosh, I can only get these 4 things done. But in the old way, we'd get none of them done. We'd just start 10 and just, it would keep happening.
And then, so like we did that and look at, we got everything for quarter 1 done ahead of time and all felt really good about it. And we're like, all right, let's start on quarter 2, even though we're not there yet, So it's like, or is there something else that we want to put in here in before the next stuff because we're ahead of schedule? But yeah, like previous to that, we would have been like, we've got nowhere. Like we're, like we're actually swimming now instead of just treading water.
Yeah, no, it feels really good. And to look back at the progress on all of these kind of large projects, even like, creating an orientation. Like, I know that sounds super boring, but the feedback we've gotten from our techs, like that impression of a new staff member is so crucial. Like that first couple weeks, like that'll make or break if this is going to be successful or not. And what could, if they're a bad egg, they're a bad egg. Or if they're not a right fit, I get that. But by taking the time to really explain, again, what is going to be the expectation placed on them, what they can expect from us as their leaders and as a company, culture, everything, how to do everything. Like the feedback has been amazing that they're like, we've not
right, yeah. People actually say they love that's the best orientation they've ever had to start a company, or they actually enjoyed it. Like when they come in the office to do it, like people laugh through parts of it. And it's like, I never had an orientation that was like that anywhere that I've worked. And I listed off a lot of places that I've worked when we started this, like and it doesn't have to be something that takes forever. Like if you're just starting out, like just something.
Yeah.
Like, and you can, again, always add to it later. You can change it later. You can completely start over if you want, but just do the thing instead of sitting around waiting, I guess. But.
Or waiting until you feel like you can do it perfect, which is never. Like we literally were creating the orientation knowing full well things were going to have to be changed about it. We were going to change certain softwares or policies and things, but just, making sure it's in a tool that is easy to change. Because at first, it was just in Google, like a Google Slides presentation, right? And now obviously we've added Trainual, which is much more robust. No way in hell I could have done that for the beginning years because it's expensive and it's got a lot of value, but we could not afford something like that. So what can you do right now? Well, Google Drive is free to everybody, right? And really creating that impression point has been really useful. And so it's been really, I think what I really appreciate, about all of you for sure, but you do this really, really well, is you guys at this point come to me and say, here's this new process, or these are the improvements I've made, or this is the new template that we're using. Like pretty much never am I coming to you guys and say, make this. Like that never happens. You guys are so full of initiative to make your work life more systematic, organized,
easier, efficient, and just more enjoyable. And I guess that's a motivator for me. Yes, I think about efficiency. That's just where my brain goes, all the time. So whether I'm here or at home, that's just the way my brain works. But why? Because it's more enjoyable to me then, I just made a new follow-up email yesterday for Cleaning for a Reason patients. Cause it was we don't really acknowledge them after we've done these free cleanings for them. And they're going through this huge thing, so here we showed up and helped you 2 times with your cleanings and then we don't say anything afterwards. That doesn't feel good. So we've got a new template for that and it's set up in ClickUp. So it reminds me to send it, I just did all of that. And like you just said, you didn't know till now, surprise.
I didn't know that. Yeah, exactly. And then it feels good. You're right. Efficiency feels good.
Once you get into doing those things, it didn't take that long to do it, but the impact that it's going to have is going to be huge. So,
well, and even looking at you and I, we've worked a lot this past year on the entire sales process. And we had been really it took us a while because we knew it was going to be kind of a bitch, to the discipline to sit down and lay out every single step of first interaction to closed, they have first cleaning and beyond. Everything, it's not just 3 things need to happen. It's okay, 5 things need to happen. And under every single item, there's 10 subtasks that need to be completed in order for it to be this perfect thing, or as close to perfect as possible for everybody. And so you and I sitting down and just laying it all out and then setting up all of the automations to make it after those calls, those Zoom calls you and I would do and ClickUp, setting up automations in Zapier, I literally felt like I was gonna like my brain was on the floor or in a jar on my counter. There's my brain, cause it's not in here.
It's a pile of mush.
Yeah. I was nobody talk to me. I can't think. And it was just hard,
But now it's
it's amazing.
yeah, why didn't we suffer through that way before this? But we didn't know then. So
yeah. And just being willing to put in the hard work of and I think a lot of times we think, especially as coming from a cleaning company, we think hard work is physical, but a lot of times for us now as the admin of running this machine, the hard work is sitting down and talking through every excruciating detail of the sales process, or going back and forth for an hour and a half until we come to the conclusion of we shouldn't do XYZ service, or this is exactly what we want out of this, or adding something to the client guidelines. That's the boring stuff, but it allows the fun stuff to happen, because you guys are so much better for the techs and for the customers when you're feeling not chaotic. And the chaos is created by not having these systems in place. Like, and just, yeah, your life is just better.
Yeah, for sure. Like it, take away any of the things we do now. And it's like, how did we do it without that before? Well, because we felt crappy about it. Like, I don't have that issue coming here to work, but like, of being like, oh, I've got to go to work today. But there's aspects of it that's like, oh, I do have to do that thing for sure. But like, when you do the hard thing and you're just like, now I know why we needed to do that. Like, it feels so much lighter and better. So it's, like, could you imagine taking away ClickUp now? Or like, I mean, you've used ZenMaid from the very beginning, but like, could you imagine without it? Like,
I literally can't. I mean, the business,
like pencil and paper, or like trying to use a spreadsheet or something. Like there's some things that I think it just makes sense, to do it from the get-go, but then there's other parts of it that have evolved, and it's evolving still and will continue, but to meet the needs that we have and the changes that happen, and just having to be able to roll with it.
Yeah, and really, like, like you just said, there's certain aspects that are unsavory about all of our positions, and when you gotta call in annoying customers, it's not it. That's on Katie. Ha! That's your job.
Not always, because I work with people that I like and that like me, so they help me out, and that's awesome.
But it's even, there's no perfect job. Like, I'm living my dream. Like, this is my dream job, but there's certain aspects of it. Yeah, it's, what flavor of shit sandwich can you eat every day and smile doing it, And I feel like we've all really honed into what each of us are really good at, what we enjoy, and it's just become a lot more organized, and it's been really fun to make those little improvements that are like adding up to a giant impact. And I feel like, like we're really enjoying the fruits of our labor from an operational standpoint. And it's just like, it just feels so much easier, and especially for you guys, obviously you're the ones who are having to do a lot of the work. And so the pain has been enough that you guys have made these improvements.
I mean, that's kind of what it has to be usually.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
you got to feel the pain before you make a change, because otherwise, why would you? And so we learn from the hot pan a lot faster than maybe we used to. We're just throwing the whole pan out altogether. So I think I'll wrap it up there. This is really good. I feel like people will have some good questions from this conversation. Leave them in the comments below, guys. Katie has been truly like so important to the growth of Serene Clean, the trajectory that it has, and really like established our brand really well. And just taken the reins and ran with them from an operational standpoint. And I just really appreciate you, Katie. And, I don't know. I don't know what else to say to you guys. I'm so unserious as a boss, I feel like. But, again, just here for the vibes, guys. And, whatever happens, happens. So, anywho, thanks for listening, guys. We'll see you on the next episode of Filthy Rich Cleaners. Bye-bye.